All right guys, so in this video, we're talking about investing in Hawaii real estate. Are we talking short-term rentals versus long-term rentals? Are we doing live-in flips versus short-term flips? Are you looking for cash flow? Are you looking for appreciation? We're gonna talk about multifamily, forcing value. We're gonna talk about the fans who just wanna buy a house, live in it, and eventually sell it for a profit. Does that always work? Someone who's incentivized for you to buy, certain lenders, yeah, you should always buy. Maybe. Let's look at your exits. We're gonna talk about that, what those numbers look like. Most people that call us say, I wanna buy land and build, they don't actually do it because of a few reasons that we're gonna list. I think that's a lot easier done in some other places than here. So I'm gonna talk about the numbers and the complexities and sort of the pain in doing that. Two questions that I get a ton are, where should I invest in a rental where you can actually do Airbnb type renting? And we're not gonna get into super complex stuff like large multifamily, big development, tax liens, utility lists, distress. This isn't an investment class. I think I'd lose a lot of people. If you're that nerdy and that experienced, hit me up because that's the stuff I like. We're here on a popular investment area, Ko Olina, it's a resort area. Let's go down there and talk about short-term renting and beach villas. People come to Hawaii, they pay for these things, right? They pay for the trees, the salt air, the ocean, the activity, the walkability, and sunsets. It's hard to say where the best sunsets are in Hawaii, but some of the best ones you're gonna get. You always see wedding photos and elopement photos or family photos like on the edges of these lagoons catching the sunset. It's an amazing thing. So when I'm thinking about investing in real estate in Hawaii, one of the first areas that comes to mind for me is Ko Olina, and specifically Ko Olina Beach Villas. This is a resort. We have a whole Ko Olina video you can check out. This is zoned resort. So there's resort residential, and with the Airbnb or short-term rental laws that were and that are changing currently, if that's the type of investing that you want to do, you want to make sure that you can do it legally, right? Currently, they could do shorter than 7 days, but currently the association has it to where you can do a 7-day minimum or a 6-night minimum rental in this building. So a lot of investors or even second home buyers who want a second home that they can monetize in their absence, they choose Ko Olina Beach Villas. The entry point is high, probably no less than 1.2, 1.3 these days. I just sent a client of mine, a friend of mine, a pro forma for a unit, one of the nicer units at the top, and the other building at the top, great view, is listed at 2.3. If you look at the cash flow that it generates, if you were to run a cap rate, an ROI, cash on cash, etc., the ROI is somewhere around 5% at 2.3. It's not the greatest. If you want to spend 2.3 million, 5% just doesn't make sense. Those are the kind of returns you get a lot of times in Hawaii though. The agent selling it's actually a friend of mine as well, and he said, if your person's looking for cash flow or for a return, it's really not the best. It doesn't really work at 2.3. He said it's really ideal for someone who wants a vacation home that can pay for itself, but you're not really getting a great return. I think the maintenance fee is like $2,100. I have to double check. They're around $2,000 maintenance fee monthly. But if you're renting something for anywhere between $600 to sometimes even $1,200 a night, you can make the numbers work, just not at 2.3. We could do the math and work it, the lower the better, but at 2.3, doesn't work for my buyer, wouldn't work for me. In other parts of Ko Olina, so there's other communities which formerly you could rent for 30 days at a time. We're still a little unsure today, at the time we're filming this, if it's gonna remain 30 in these communities, if it will be brought to 90, because it seems like that's what's gonna be signed into effect. I was actually trying to control a unit, not buy, but control a unit here on the resort, on the property. Now that the 90-day thing is going to come into effect, I'm backing off a little. I don't know if the numbers are gonna work for me. In case you're wondering, why can something rent for $600, $1,200 a night? Well, for one, these have kitchens. They're a little different thing than staying in a hotel, right? It's like staying in a full-on suite in Hawaii, and then we'll shift the camera this way. This is what you get in Ko Olina. So amazing jogging, walking path, the lagoons, sunsets, this kind of, what is this grass called? It doesn't get your feet dirty. Great grassy areas, trees. It's just, Ko Olina is the resort. I'd say Ko Olina and Turtle Bay. A little bit of a different thing, but Ko Olina and Turtle Bay are like the premier resorts on the island. That's why these guys can get $1,500, $1,800 per night for some units during holiday seasons and whatnot. The only thing that could take them out of style is something like where people just couldn't rent their properties. We can't expect that that's gonna happen, annually or every few years, that we're always gonna have a virus, but maybe when you're underwriting your deal, you are concerned about that. So maybe your play on investing is a little different.
Adding on the R6, but we're checking we're going to leave it as is, so it's coming to you. So if you have any questions, give me a call. 808.
That's a win. All right, I'm gonna text her. If we speak verbally, it stands to muddy the waters, and I want to get this counter offer in position so that we're in control. Sorry, so I'm negotiating on an investment property as we speak. Hey, thank you so much for the voicemail period. The buyers are gonna be really excited, and I can't wait to present the counter offer to them, period. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you, period. I know when you use Siri to like dictate, it almost sounds inauthentic, but we're really stoked on this one. These people are a bit of an investor, so they're gonna do a live-in kind of flip. And this property, it's on a private area with a specific association. So if they will allow short to medium term renting, there's nothing, I've never seen a house, like when I got to this house, I was like, wow, I wish I could buy this and Airbnb it. Like, it's amazing. So a little bit of an investment. We're stitching up the deal right now. They're gonna be stoked. They're like, here, I'll read you the message. I don't know how you guys do this for a living. Laugh out loud, it's stressful. Crying, laughing face emoji. And I said, I'm not sure if Mahi is any less stressed than you are. I said, but yes, we do it every day. So we definitely just know that we love you guys, and feel free to text for a checkup if we haven't gotten back to you, because we understand that for our clients, there's more anxiety waiting for these counter offers and during negotiations. They're like anxious and excited. This is gonna be like one of those cool, hey, so we got the house. They're gonna be super excited. You get the funny part in there too. I gotta admit, Mahi's gift game is strong. She got a strong gift game. She got a strong gift game. So today we're gonna do a little bit of that format where we jump around and show you, different zones. While we're driving, let's talk about Hawaii's cash on cash, or ROI. A lot of times when people are saying, what's the ROI? What's the return on investment? To an investor, they may say, well, what do you mean? Do you mean cap rate, which is usually used for commercial properties or multifamily greater than 4 units? Or are you talking about cash on cash return? Are you talking about IRR? Or internal rate of return? Like, what metric are you using to judge the return? For every $100,000 that you put into an asset, how quickly are you getting that back? So that's cash on cash. Over a 10-year holding period, how much did you level up? How much did your money multiply? And that's the IRR metric. And so in Hawaii, if you were to run IRR, it may look good over 10 years because we're a strong appreciation state. The first year cash flow, it could be horrible, to be quite honest. You hear these stories of people using their VA loan, 0 down, while they were stationed at Fort Hood or Fort Bliss. They bought the house for $200,000 or whatever. Then 4 years later, they leave and they're renting it for $2,200 a month. So they're like cash flowing. They have $0 in the deal and they're making money. That is almost guaranteed not going to happen here. Now, it's possible. Recently, we've experienced a big surge in rent. So if you bought in Hawaii 4 years ago and you're PCSing now, you're probably looking at so much appreciation and so much equity that could be tax deferred as you sell. Appreciation is the ticket here. Investors from the mainland are not impressed by our cash on cash or our instant cash flow numbers. You're talking 3, 4, 5, 6%, 7% if you're lucky. On the mainland, people are looking for 10 to 15% on a good cash flowing investment. But in 10 years, that $200,000 house in Alabama, it might still be worth $200,000. Whereas in 10 years, the $1 million house here, no, I can't guarantee it. I don't think Hawaii is gonna get less popular. So the appreciation play here, historically, been a bulletproof one. If you're able to stay in the market, if you're able to hold, if you have the holding power. You know what? That's why we encourage local people. Like, we educate and encourage local people. If they're not already rock solid, if we need to, let's get your finances in order so that we can get you in the market. Buy something. Buy real estate. Don't buy Snickers bars. Don't buy Teslas and vacations until you can. And it's not timing the market. It's time in the market. I don't know if I mentioned buying land and building. And it's really a whole separate video, but we're gonna mention in this one because it's something that we get asked a lot. It's akin to investing, right? It is what it is, I guess, with the dogs. Pit bull, poi dog. They look like they could jump the fence. Yeah, and so what we're looking at here is, this is called Honokai Hale. There's another name, yeah? Oh yeah, Honokai Garden. So I just think of this whole thing as Honokai. But this is like, if we pull up the map, Geographically, we're in between Kapolei and Nanakuli. School zoning wise, this could change in the future, but it's always been that this is the Kapolei. It's more like the end, the last extension of Kapolei. Older neighborhood. And right over there is Ko Olina. So the Four Seasons, Lani, all of that's right there. This is actually overlooking the golf course, Ko Olina Kai, one of the communities that we sell in. You get some ocean views too. So if you had a 2-story here, you would have ocean views right there. Now I haven't looked into what this is zoned for and all of that good stuff, but not bad views. Pro tip, if you go on Airbnb and you see this and it's listed as Ko Olina, it's not Ko Olina. You can see Ko Olina, but it's not Ko Olina, it's a different thing. In Hawaii, 99% of the people that come to us and talk about buying land and building don't actually end up doing it, and these are the reasons why. Maybe in Huntsville, Alabama, or in Lexington, Kentucky or something, if you buy land and build, you could actually do it for a better price. But maybe you can buy land and build a duplex or build a multifamily or something like that. Financing for buying land. So you have to put a larger down payment to buy the land. It's not an improved asset. Every house that's on a piece of land, the house is called a real estate improvement. So it hasn't been improved yet, right? So that's one thing. So the bank, if you default, they're stuck with this land. That's kind of hard to sell. So you usually have to put 30%. How's it? So you usually have to put like 30% down. Could be more depending on your financing. And it has to be secured by other assets. They need to know that if you were to just walk away from this land, that there's other ways for them to recoup. So on top of a higher down payment that needs to be secured by assets, now you need the construction loan. You're probably looking at 25% at least for that as well. If you built a home in 18 months here with our Department of Planning and Permitting, we would be impressed. Now I do know of investors and flippers and people that run in those circles in this community that have done it, but I've also heard 3 years. I condition our clients who are talking about land and building to expect no less than 2 years and maybe longer depending on how the permitting process goes, depending on your contractors, if they make a mistake in framing and spacing, or there's an offset where something's too close. Anything can come up, and something's sure to come up in building. More concisely, it takes a really long time. You're looking at 2 to 3 years to build in Hawaii. And so the people that usually do it successfully are either investors who are doing it for resale. They're taking a plot of land and CPRing it, chopping it into other pieces and building houses to make a little mini subdivision. Maybe families, so they live in that one and now they're just slowly building this one for family or something. Or people with significant wealth where they also have another living situation and they're building their home with a great view or coastline or something along those lines, and they have the 3 years to wait. Those are really the 3 situations where we see people build successfully. In town, you do see homes get torn down and then they build these huge multifamilies that they rent out for higher cash flow. Your money's dead for a period of time. So if you take a 2-year build, let's just say, a little more optimistic, and there's gonna be 800, 900,000 invested in, slowly progressing as the build goes on. I would venture to say for most investors watching this video, you don't have 2 years to let that wealth sit stagnant, dead, without cash flowing, to wait for the cash flow later. If you had a piece of land that's zoned residential, has the utility hookups, has all of the stuff, and you want to build a fourplex or something, you're just gonna cash flow better in other like southern and Midwest states. It's really not the place to do it, but some people, they have to have their investments in Hawaii. I have a millionaire friend who owns 7 properties or something. He knows the cash flow could be double out of state, but he just wants to be here. If you're watching this from another state to do it here, we should probably talk about getting you in the South or something. Anybody tried to build over here before?
The lady, the one inherit, the mom and dad, yeah, the daughter came one day over here.
Oh yeah?
And she was gonna build a house.
But she never built.
She never did.
Yeah.
Because you said had homeless going in or something.
Daughter was supposed
Chronic.
to
Guarantee, yeah.
That's why he break them down.
He had another property somewhere and he just moved
I
out.
thought you was gonna sell it. That's all.
I would like to. Maybe I'll reach out to her. We found an area where the uncles aren't gonna be like, hey, what you doing? Once we told them who we are and whatever, they're like, oh, and then they just wanted to talk stories. So Hawaii aloha. Another way to make money in real estate in Hawaii is flipping, obviously. For all you Kanakas out there, what you doing selling Hawaii real estate? Well, flipping is actually a way where investors bring value to the community, right? So although it does help to raise home prices, you have these like dilapidated, condemned type of homes without outside money would never, they're gonna end up falling apart, eaten by termites here in Hawaii and all this stuff. Margins in Hawaii are just like margins anywhere. It's how good of a deal can you find? How much of a problem can you solve? How quickly? with cash. If you know about flipping, I really don't have to explain much of this to you. And if you don't know about flipping, I couldn't do it in just a few minutes. But what I will say is flipping in Hawaii is probably a little different than flipping in, say, Arizona or something. Relationships are king anywhere in any business. Hawaii is such a small town that your reputation will precede you. It's just more important. I think it's more valuable and it's more vulnerable. It's more fragile. Your reputation has to stay strong here on the island and in the islands. A lot of the flippers I know, they find a majority of their deals through relationships. Students, their aunties, their uncles, people they've met, high school friends, and going to auctions, sending mailers, calling tax lien, utility lists, all of those creative ways to generate leads. That works as well, but relationships are king in Hawaii. We've talked on this channel about construction types. On the mainland in certain areas, you're probably way less likely to experience post and pier, jealousy windows, termite damage, single wall construction, where you literally just have a wall that's like this thick, you know? A 2x4, it's not framed up with drywall and whatever material on the outside. There's like a wall and it sits in this thing and that's it. You hang a picture, the nail is sticking on the outside. There's different construction types, there's a different culture, so that brings a different element to flipping here. But the margins could be amazing. I've heard of guys getting a house for like $100,000. The guy was like, I need to leave to the mainland tomorrow. I need money tomorrow. I don't know what the whole situation was, but he got the house for that much, and then he was able to fix it and sell it for $500-600 or something. That's very uncommon. The margins on most deals in Hawaii, people are pushing their margins to like 10 to 20%. They're gonna be all in. Holding costs, the hard money loan, the acquisition, the repairs, the realtor fees, the closing fees, and the whole investment's like a $500,000 investment to make 50 grand. Like some people are settling for 10% in this market because deals are hard to find. You probably want to get to like 30%, right? So if you're going to invest 500,000, you probably want to make a little over 6 figures on that deal if you can. But then you got to get creative, you know, so you got to find a house that, like, let's say this house, a 1-story house, you buy the house, you add a 2nd story. This is a community where a lot of local people team up and live in here. So you want 4 or 5 bedrooms. I happen to know in this community, a 4-bedroom is gonna sell way better than a 3-bedroom in this community. So just like flipping anywhere, you have to know your community, know your niches. You know, the riches are in the niches or niches. Comment below, tell me how you guys say that. Another popular thing in Hawaii, if you are gonna rent something out or if you're gonna flip to sell, increase square footage, increase living situation, in the right neighborhoods. So in Waipahu, Kalihi, Honokai, parts of Kaneohe, parts of the country, taking a 3-bedroom, converting it to a 5, adding on, you can see an opportunity that others wouldn't otherwise see. Forcing that square footage in certain places may just yield a higher return. In a home like this, or a home like that one, which is similar, you have this big home that's taking up almost all of the usable land, 7, 8, 9, 10 bedrooms. And so the reason is multiple families live in that place. So in these neighborhoods, I would say more commonly it's family. Brother, mom, and sister, and 3 families all live in. In town, it may be that they treat it as a multifamily, but that leads me to my next thing is it zoned for multifamily? Are there multiple kitchens? On tax record, is this a duplex? So people always tell me, hey, Derek, I only have this much down, but I heard on the podcast, if I buy a duplex, then I can use the income from the 2nd unit to support me living in this one. That works better on the mainland, doesn't work as commonly here because most of the multifamily things that you see on the market, they're not true multifamily. So on tax record, it's a single family home. They've built either maybe non-permitted, non-conforming extensions, or it's a single family home with an approved ADU, accessory dwelling unit, additional dwelling unit, Ohana unit. An Ohana unit or an ADU may have a whole full kitchen, but it's not a duplex. So you can't take the money from the ADU, the perceived income, or even the performing rental income. Under Fannie and Freddie guidelines and all the loan guidelines, they can't use that for projected income. It has to be legally a duplex or a triplex, a true multifamily. 2 kitchens doesn't mean that true duplex. A wet bar where someone's illegally put a 3rd appliance unit. So when it's a wet bar, you can have like the sink and the fridge, but not the stove. Someone, you know, puts the stove in and they rent it. Well, that's their business, but it's not a true duplex and it's not gonna underwrite. You're not gonna be able to get the financing that you would get for a true duplex. That's what you see a lot in Hawaii. You see multifamily that's not on tax record multifamily. We get questions all the time about where can I do Airbnb, or I want an Airbnb without knowing that it is dependent upon zoning. So again, we're right in the middle of all of this shifting and changing and the laws changing, but for the most part. Some things about short-term rentals. If it's in a resort zone, you can do short-term renting. So for example, the Hilton couldn't have their hotel in an industrial or residential zone. They have to build the hotels in Waikiki in a resort zone. So where else can you do short-term renting or Airbnb type investing? Waikiki, but not all of Waikiki. So you have to look up, there's this map that shows like pink boundaries on which streets and stuff. In the heart of Waikiki, if you will, you can do short-term renting as long as the association that supersedes the state doesn't say you can't. If the association says, yeah, we're in Waikiki, we have an 80% occupancy rate of owner occupants, people who live here, that wouldn't happen in Waikiki. This association isn't going to allow you to rent your home for whatever the rule is at the time, 30 or 90, you just can't do shorter term renting. The association can make that rule. But if you want a place that's protected other than the association and that zoning wise you can do Airbnbs, that's going to be the appropriate parts of Waikiki, Ko Olina Beach Villas, parts of Turtle Bay, residential/resort zoning. So the other communities here in Ko Olina Kai, Hillside Villas, Fairways, Lani, Coconut Plantation, I know I missed one. These communities are residential/resort. We don't know what they're gonna do, if maybe Ko Olina Kai is gonna be rezoned as a resort. It will still matter what the association says. I do know investors in different areas where they're unsure about the future, and I've asked one or two of them, when these rules change, are you still gonna do shorter term, like 30, the old rule? Does it depend? And some people say, yeah, I'm just gonna still do what I want. And if I get the fine, if and when that happens, the numbers work for me. I can't facilitate that and say that you should do that, but I definitely understand. If the first fine is $1,000 and you make $100,000 in the interim, I can understand why someone says, I'm just gonna run it, until that time comes. Last point for me, so you're not Mr. and Mrs. I'm gonna buy multifamily, turn an apartment building into a condo building and all this crazy stuff, or build from the ground up. So you're asking, Derek, I see my primary residence as an investment. That's why I clicked on this video. So what do those numbers look like? And I think we should always be looking at your exits. An example, a vouch for my character as your real estate agent. One of the big funnels of energy in real estate here is military coming and using your VA loan. People are, I'm your VA specialist and I can teach you about the VA loan. And I'll tell you a little secret. For the most part, the VA loan is actually easier than some of the others. So saying like I do nothing but VA may mean that you're even less skilled, but you're putting yourself in a 100% leverage situation, which could be good because let's say the market goes to crap, you have to walk away from the house. Well, you had no money in the deal. If it short sells or forecloses, you're just gonna have to wait to rebuild your credit, but at least you didn't lose money. So that's the good side of it. On the other hand, if you want a cash flow, if you want to buy something that you can live in, you can rent out when you leave, 100% financed in Hawaii, those numbers don't always work out too great. Back to the vouching of the character that I was trying to get to. There's a heavy hitter on the island that I had coffee with, a loan officer that does a ton of business. One of the top 5 probably VA lenders on the island. And this person said, Derek, if you send me your VA clients, send me your military clients, I'll close them every time. I'll get them to buy a house every time. I'll show them the numbers, they'll always buy a house. And I said, well, I don't know if active duty should always buy. What do you mean? He said, it doesn't matter how long they have on the island, I'll get them to buy. And I said, well, what if someone only has 2 years? And depending on their situation, he said, I'll get them to buy. And that was a red flag for me. I don't work with the person. I won't send that person referrals. I won't recommend them because I think that's a little aggressive and I don't think that's responsible. Usually, historically, if you buy a house in Hawaii and you wait 2 years, you sell it and make a profit, and usually that's okay, but not always. So let's talk about your exits. If you're active duty military, you're like, hey, I'm E6 up for E7. I tested pretty good on this last one. I'm probably gonna get it. So I'll probably be leaving in a year or in 2 years, or I might take the command position over here, but I also might get moved to Texas. Let's talk about if you should buy. Is there any reason that you wanna stay in Hawaii, like you wanna retire in Hawaii? Do you want a house in Hawaii, or is this just an investment? If it's just an investment and you're leaving in 12 months, I'm gonna tell you not to buy. Could be worst case scenario. Let's say you went 100% finance, so you did a VA loan in 2007, and you're in one of the medium to bad areas in terms of the correction, and you have to sell 3 to 4 years later, so your traditional military billet. How long did you have to hold that house until you were profitable again? And then what happened if you continue to hold it? So the answer is probably by 2014, You could sell that house for break even or for profit probably. And if you held it till 2022, we all know what happened, you're rich. But how much did it cost for you to get through that time? How much did it cost for you to rent the place out and cash flow in a negative way, have negative cash flow each month? But you're probably renting it out for like a $500 a month deficit. And so $500 a month times 12 months in a year, $6,000. Now this isn't counting the tax benefits of home ownership, the equity pay down that the renters are contributing to. $500 a month negative cash flow is $6,000 a year. So I would challenge an active duty member or just someone who's gonna be here for a few years, or even a local family. You know, they're like, oh, I'm gonna live over here, but when my kid gets in high school, I wanna live over here. So, okay, well, what does the 4-year exit look like? It may not be that you can just sell because you always buy and sell in Hawaii and make money. That's not always true. It's usually true, it's commonly true. Probably more often than not in a 4-year period, you're profitable, but not always. So then I challenge that person, if you needed to go rent in the school district that you wanna be in, or you have to PCS away from the island, whatever the circumstances are, can you handle $6,000 negative a year? If you can, then let's proceed. If you're like, no, I'm getting out of the military, I'm only gonna be using my GI Bill, or when I PCS, I'm gonna go to Texas, everything's gonna go down, we're having a kid, my wife's not gonna be working. If these are all the factors, I'm gonna caution you, my team is gonna caution you that maybe you shouldn't buy. But let's talk about the numbers if you were to hold. In Ewa Beach, my dad guys bought in 2002 for $300,000. By 2007, they sold for $600,000. By 2014, that home was worth $650,000 again. In 2022, I could probably sell that house for $1.2. Average appreciation depends on the snapshot of time that they look at and how they adjusted for this last market rush. But you hear people talk about a 3 to 4%, maybe even you hear people say 4.5%. If they're telling you 5%, that's too much. You can't count on a 5% appreciation over time. 3, 4, 4.5 over time in the Hawaii market, it's very normal. 3% on your home year over year for 4 years. You walk away, you can pay your agent and still be profitable. If you'd like to see a video where we sit down, literally get out illustrations or really geeky numbers and talk about your exit strategies for buying a house here in Hawaii after 3 years versus 4, 4 versus 8 versus 10. We'll make a whole separate video on this topic. But I just wanted to touch on what does it mean for the regular investor, the person who's just buying a house, wants to hold it for a while, and then wants to sell it. Take military, for example, they're usually okay. 3 to 4 years, they leave, they sell, they make money, everyone's a genius. If you bought in 2007 at the peak, you needed to probably wait till 2013 or 14 to be profitable again, and that's the worst recession in our lifetimes. And if you hold for 10 years in Hawaii, it's almost bulletproof. If you hold for 10 years in Hawaii and you're not making money for some reason, I'm concerned about the state of America. Hope you enjoyed that video. Let us know about your investing real estate questions. I'm gonna go eat.